Hello and welcome to Joy in Our Town. I'm Orlena Valero, the host of the program, and so happy you've joined us today. We're talking about public safety issues, and here with me to do that is Mr. Phil McIlveen. Welcome to the show, Phil.
Hey.
Good to have you. This is a guy that does a little bit of everything. We're talking about public safety because I know you're an instructor for CPR, and we are going to talk about CPR. Very important to know. Can you believe I still haven't gone to a class to learn it? So I think I'm going to try today. Now, if I do this right, could I get a certificate?
Don't try this at home. Okay, just kidding.
Okay. And then we're going to talk about first aid things and how important first aid and to have it ready and in the home or at an office or wherever somebody might be, even in your car.
Absolutely.
Are we supposed to kind of have them with us just to be on the safe side in case we get a blister with our new shoe or something? Anyway, just joking. But go ahead, Phil. Tell the audience a little bit about who you are and what you do.
My name is Phil McIlveen. I'm the CEO of New Exodus and also Seeing the Need Marketing. And you know, there's a lot of elements to what I do in the community, and lots of project management, lots of charity work. One of the elements that is involved with the New Exodus is the fact that we provide services to the community. So medical services, dental services, child care, CPR is one of them as well. So we try to cover all bases and try to help out as much as we can. Awesome.
That is very good. And I know you do lots of charity work and help lots of people. I know you've built homes and for people or had it done. You haven't been out there hammering nails yourself. I don't know, maybe you put a few in the wall.
Yes.
Okay. And did some things for people, and that's great. And I know you work with Toys for Tots too, right?
Toys for Tots, as well as getting ready to launch the biggest community center in the history of Arizona with Salvation Army. So very blessed, very blessed.
Wow, that's right, because aren't they building a huge project, Salvation Army here?
$64 million community center, which is the largest in Arizona history, but also the largest in the country.
Wow, our Governor Jan Brewer was just at the Revolver Lounge and doing a special thing there a few weeks ago, and the Salvation Army guy was there that told us about that project. I didn't know you were going to be over that. That's wonderful.
Absolutely.
So that's good. So I guess you're looking for volunteers and things like that to help out, huh?
Yeah, I got your name on the top of the list. So.
Oh, thank you. Just what I need, another thing to do with my already crazy life. No, but anyway, of course I'll help out any way I can, Phil.
Sure.
Anyway, but let's get on with our CPR. What is that stand for, and why do we need to know how to do it?
CPR is cardiopulmonary resuscitation. And you know what's ironic is a lot of things have come down the pipeline over the years. Ratios have changed.
Pipeline?
Internet, shall I say. And now they've come out with CCCR, which is continuous chest compression resuscitation, which there's a big misconception. People think you do not have to do ventilation anymore, because that continuous chest compression CPR is straight compressions with no ventilation. And the reason that it was established wasn't because you did not need to do ventilation anymore. It's because people weren't doing CPR, so they wanted to make an avenue so more people would give CPR. It's better to give some care than no care. And that's kind of the philosophy behind it. But CPR is really truly important. And if you get into the aspects, the two leading causes for a need of CPR is heart attack and stroke. And it used to be that women or men had more heart attacks than women. That's not the case anymore. Women have a lot more heart attacks than men do. And also because of the
women do?
Absolutely.
Really?
Now, probably because of the men. No, just kidding.
That could be the fact.
But it used to be men were more prone to heart attacks, and over the years it has evolved to women are more susceptible to heart attacks, and that's one of the leading causes. But biologically, obviously, we're different as males and females. So things happen in reference to being able to recognize the signs and the symptoms when somebody's having a heart attack. Women will experience more pain in the neck and in the jaw, pain in their shoulders, between their shoulder blades and their back, or even in their lower back between the hips. So, you might be able to look at somebody and, it doesn't mean if somebody's having a backache that they're having a heart attack, but you want to be able to tell those signs and symptoms so you can properly assess that care and see if you can help somebody as well. And then the second aspect is stroke. And, stroke's a funny thing because you're not completely unconscious and you're not completely conscious. You're kind of in an altered state, kind of looking at somebody for the most part. So
for a stroke?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, different one. Or Bell's palsy. What about that? No, that's more.
Well, you're talking about more disease-centered. aspects of that, so it more has symptoms of the disease. When I'm talking about CPR, I'm talking about when somebody goes unconscious for any reason whatsoever. And it's really important, you know, it can happen to a child through the fact of choking or in that aspect, and we'll talk about that later in first aid, but it can happen to an adult. It can happen to anybody, so you want to have a basic knowledge. I would hate to have such a simple knowledge available and not know it and have something happen, because, you know, we can only last so much without oxygen, especially infants. Infants' hearts beat faster, and they're smaller, so they're going to expire quicker. So it's real important to know some of the elements. It's real important to find a place where you can get taught, no matter where it's at, but learn it. It's good.
Yeah, isn't there so many minutes that you can be without oxygen before it does brain damage?
Well, you know, the one part of CPR that I always teach is real simple. You know, there's a couple elements to it, but the main thing is your two parts is your mouth and your chest. When your heart is beating, average adult heartbeat's about 80 beats per minute. And we can only last so much without oxygen, which is around the 8 to 10 minute mark. The way that CPR is, it goes like this. You have to about a 60% chance of somebody ventilating if you do CPR correctly. For every minute that they are unconscious, you can decrease that by 10%. So if you've done CPR for a minute, now they've got about a 50% chance of ventilating. If you've done CPR for 2 minutes, 40, 3 minutes, down to 30%. The neat thing about knowing CPR is now there's AEDs available, which are the defibrillators, the automatic external defibrillators, which normally at the 3 minute mark, you'd have a 30% chance of that person actually breathing. If you used an AED, it would jump it to about 75%. So it's real important to find a good instruction place that can teach CPR, get the AED training. It greatly increases the chances of somebody actually ventilating and living. It's a real great tool.
Well, that is so great. And I notice you have two different, like an infant and an adult. Is that supposed to be what that is?
Yeah, this is Bobby, and this is little Bobby.
Little Bobby,
but
Bobby
these are,
Jr. and Bobby
these
Sr.
are, you know, CPR mannequins that we use to teach, and they actually have settings on them so you know how far to push down. So we get for adult, child, and infant, which are the 3 levels of CPR that you get certified in. It has the ventilation tubes, and even on the infants, we can actually take them and actually put bags inside their chest so you know how much air to blow, so you're not blowing their little lungs out when you're giving them CPR either.
Oh, because you can blow too hard into an infant.
You can't blow this amount of air and this amount of body. Something's going to change. So,
wow, could it be dangerous if you do it wrong?
Absolutely. And that's where that element comes in. Have you ever heard of Good Samaritan law?
Yes.
That protects the people giving the care as well as the people receiving the care. One of those elements is not operating out of the scope of what you're trained to do. So if you're not trained in CPR, then that means you're operating out of the scope. So it's real important to kind of know what you're doing. You don't want to push too hard and go through the infant's chest, because you can if you have really strong hands or nails, because their skin is more dense than an adult. So there's some different things, and liability is also a big issue too. You want to make sure you're providing the maximum care you can to that person or that patient. So it's good to know what you're liable for, how to do it, and make sure you know what you're doing.
So you don't have to be certified to do it, but if you can take a class or watch a video, or maybe today we can do a little bit of this. You can show us how you blow in their mouth or however you do it, and you do the compression on the chest and then blow, and I know you're supposed to have the neck back or something. Why don't you show us? Should we get down here and look
I'll
at
show
it?
you real quick. I want to touch on one thing as we're doing this.
Okay.
You mentioned something that you don't need to be certified to do it. Well, you don't need to do anything in life if you don't want to, but I would not recommend it. You know, you need that education to know how to do it.
Yeah, to know how to do it.
If not, you could be putting that person at risk and also yourself.
Right.
So it's real important to get that certification that you need.
And two, if you needed CPR, you'd want somebody that was. So we all should really get certified.
So,
and do kids learn how to do this too?
Absolutely.
Like a family can go down and get certified.
You know, the way that I teach it, and there's no age limit on who I teach. If they can comprehend the course, if they can do the practical, and do it and teach it in a way where they know they understand it, then we'll teach them. We may not certify them at a certain age, but we definitely will teach them. And I've had students actually be certified with certification from 10 years old, stuff like that, 9 years old.
Well, that's great.
My daughter has been doing it since she's been 3. So,
well, since Daddy teaches it. That's good.
She used to be my mannequin. I'm just kidding.
You're funny.
So real quick, one of the things you requested is, we can't get into too much of it, but when you're doing CPR, obviously what you're talking about with the head back, and that's opening the airway, and that's really, really important because the air flows two different ways, down your trachea or down your esophagus. So if the air is going into your esophagus, then it's going to wind up in your stomach, and that's not where you want it to go. You want to make sure that air goes into the lungs.
Oh, so that's why the head has to be tilted back.
Sure. And as you're tilting it back and making sure that airway's up, you want to make sure you blow in a full amount of air and look to see if the chest rises or the stomach rises. If the chest rises, then you know the air is getting in there. If not...
And you plug the nose. So does that rise if you do it?
Depends. And now, if it's obstructed, if the stomach rises, there's a problem because the air is supposed to go where?
In the lungs.
So what's the problem? There are two things. It can be obstructed between here and here.
Oh, or, even if the neck's back.
Or you could not have this neck all the way back. So there's some different elements that you'll learn in the instruction aspect. And then with infants, it's also real important too, is they're very fragile. First of all, you just tilt their head to where the nose is just vertical with the sky. And you can put your mouth over the nose and the mouth, or you can pinch the mouth. But you're doing cheek puffs. You're not doing blows. You're just... That's it. And there's a lot of different variations with it. I'd want to do it in a class setting where people could understand it more. But real important, infants don't have a lot of time. And the more time lapses, the more oxygen leaves the body. People think that ventilation is really breathing into the person. Well, if we're blowing air into this person, we are blowing out mostly carbon dioxide, not oxygen. So it's the compressions that really matter. If this little guy goes down for a period of time, you can't reverse that brain damage and that organ damage. What this does is it pushes the oxygenated blood through the brain into the organs to keep them living.
Oh, that's why you
That's why you call 911 first, because they have oxygen and they can keep it flowing.
You do that first and then you do the
very
CPR.
First thing you ever do is call 911 first.
Yeah, first. Even if it looks like they've been out of air for a while?
Well, let's put it this way. One of the liability aspects is once you start care, you're obligated to stay with that person until medical help arrives. So if you don't call 911 first, then you're going to be held liable.
And it just takes a minute.
Sure. Yeah. Well, think about the benefit. They've got AEDs, they've got oxygen, they got all that help.
And nowadays with everybody with a cell phone, you can dial 911 and then just get right over there and be right with the people.
Which is one of the things, even in first aid and CPR, is calling from a landline phone so they know where you're at. Not all cell phones have GPS tracking, and it takes a lot longer to track that GPS. Absolutely. It takes a lot longer to track that GPS signal.
Even now?
Sure.
I thought that they put stuff in the phones where
not all the phones have it.
Yeah, some of the older ones.
So if you think that they know your location and you're just yelling into a phone, you always try to call from a landline first. So this is the reason, and this is probably the best part of CPR, is you're dealing with seconds and not minutes. So if you want to make sure and have the best benefit for that person or that patient to revive, to ventilate, then you're going to want to follow directions, cut time, and do what you need to do.
Wow, that is amazing. So that's good. And how long does it take to do a CPR class?
Depends on the instructor, and depends on the agency, and depends on the size of the class. It can be anywhere from 2 to 3 hours to an 8-hour class.
Oh, so like just one day, one time to go. You don't have to go like 3 or 4 times to. Oh, okay, so you just go, and I know that on your website, people can go and they can find out, and I know we've got 2 websites we're gonna have up here, so in just 1 second. So real quick, they can go to the website to find out when classes are, and even the city, don't they offer that, or the fire department?
They're offered everywhere. You could type in CPR Phoenix, Arizona, and you'll get all sorts of different information and different aspects in it. If you go to the website that we'll show in a little bit.
That's true.
They'll have, you can click on probably your state and your zip code, but they have so much information on that website that you really can get a good idea of what they have to offer.
Okay, great. Well, let's go to the information so people know how to get in touch with you. Mr. Phil McIlveen with New Exodus, Inc. 1-888-747-9764 is his number. You can email him any questions you might have at info@newexodus.org, and that's Exodus, and we are not spelling it wrong. That's how it's spelled, EXODOS, even though it's pronounced Exodus. And the website, newexodus.org. And you can go to the one he was talking about, ashieinstitute.org, has all kinds of classes on there and information that has to do with first aid and CPR and everything
and on that
we're
website,
talking
when
about
they go
today.
to that, you can go into the state of Arizona. They'll give you different providers, different classes, and it's got a load of information that you can get, like on child and babysitting safety and see all sorts of stuff. So it's
just
really neat.
everything.
Yeah.
So anything that you're interested in, just check those websites out. Check especially the ASHI Institute. That has, like you said, everything. So I went on there too, and I went, wow, you could just do almost anything here. So I love it. And probably
get
they do certified.
too.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, great. Well, really quick before we go to talk about our first aid and public safety that we're going to be talking about, we're going to run to 30-second PSA. We'll be right back.
I can solve difficult problems for a Fortune 500 company.
I can run a successful business.
I can put my military experience to work for your company.
I can manage your home improvements.
I can publicize a message.
I can teach your children.
But I can't put my skills to work for your organization
if I'm not given the opportunity.
Nearly 50 million Americans have disabilities. Capitalize on their talents with employment practices that benefit everyone. Learn more at whatcanyoudocampaign.org.
Hello, thank you for staying tuned. I'm Marlena Valera. I'm here with Mr. Phil McIlveen with New Exodus Inc. And we're going to be talking about first aid to doing with the issue of public safety. So explain first aid. Why is it important for us to understand first aid and to have it available to us wherever we may be?
Well, the first thing you need to, that I always teach on first aid is common sense. And a lot of people maybe not take the time to figure out all the different areas where first aid applies. When you're dealing with CPR, you're dealing with consciousness and unconsciousness. When you're dealing with first aid, you're dealing with a conscious aspect of it, trying to help the person as best that you can. First aid is common sense, but you know, everybody comes from different cultural backgrounds, diversity. So, you know, you might have had an Italian mom that grew up in Italy, and you know, if there was a snake bite, suck the venom out. That's not everybody has that.
Yes.
So, you know, some people lean their head forward when they have a bloody nose. Some people lean their head backward. It depends if they like the taste of blood or not. No, I'm just kidding. But everybody's taught different ways, and none of them are all incorrect or the other way. But some work for others, and some work for and each people differently. So first aid is real quick. It's common sense. It's still the same areas as CPR. I kind of have it in categories that I put it in, which is minor cuts, scrapes, and bruises. Then you got the walking wounded, which is what I kind of call the whiners. You got your seriously injured, then you're fatally injured. And it's real important to know, especially if it's somebody that you love, you know, give an example like a car accident of maybe how you can do something to prevent any future damage to them if it's already occurred, or how to get them to a point where it's helping them before they go unconscious.
Yes.
So it's real important, and there's all areas of first aid. You know, there's especially one thing in reference to cleaning up all the bodily fluids or blood exposure, and always got to remember,
Yeah, especially with
gloves,
all the
gloves,
diseases.
gloves, gloves, gloves,
Yeah.
gloves,
Really?
gloves, gloves, gloves. Really,
so
really
in our
important.
first aid kit, or even at home, we should always have gloves available. Those, and you can get them so easy everywhere.
I
Plastic
bring one.
gloves.
It's on a little keychain, and inside it is a pack of gloves. And actually, if you need to do CPR so you can protect yourself, it's just a portable little mask, comes with a little string. You put it over. Now, these have got one-way valves in them, which means if I blow air in one way, their air doesn't come back through the other way. So it kind of protects me. So this is called a barrier. It's for ventilation purposes.
It looks like that goes around the ear.
Yeah, it goes
How
like.
cute.
You want to try it on?
Oh no, thanks. I'll take your.
Well, we could actually do a demonstration
Yeah,
since you
go
want to be
ahead.
certified, right?
No, well, I don't want to do that. I'll let you do it.
So you put it across like
On
this,
TV.
and you would go ahead and do your ventilation, and it protects you from that aspect of it.
I didn't even know they made those. Where do you get something like that? Oh, it's called CPR Saver?
There's a lot of different places you get that. There's a place here locally, CPR Savers. It's for people that are instructors and instruction institutes. So like my agency is actually able to teach instructors as well as provide CPR classes. And they're more for those type of people. Now you can get these anywhere. You can get portable barriers, you can get gloves anywhere. If you want to get some keychains, go onto that website. and they've got all sorts of different stuff that you can buy, and they're not expensive, $10. But you know, they have this stuff at local markets and different aspects like that. Just go to your local
and then find
pharmacy and tell them you want a couple barriers and some gloves, and they got them.
Well, you know, I've noticed even people in their houses, they should have a special first aid box or something, because even when your child gets hurt, you're running around trying to find, you know, Neosporin and peroxide to put on it, you know, to rinse it off. You know what I'm saying? And stuff, and they don't know where everything's at. So if you have like a special little first aid box or kit or something, you could go right to it, and you have all the gauzes in there and cottons and Q-tips and
unlike
alcohol.
Unlike a toolbox, which has a set of tools in it, you know, you have to know how to work on a car. A first aid kit is common sense, but you still got to know what to use. So it's also important to know what the content of that first aid kit is, because a lot of them are different. Maybe one has a ventilation mask, one doesn't. Maybe one has burn cream, maybe one doesn't. So, you know, it's really good to know what's in the content. And if you're a business, and if you have a first aid kit, which most of them do, because of liability, but the reality of it is you need to check that first aid kit. People go into it. People use it. So when you go in there for maybe something that's very serious, you might not have known that over a course of time things have been missing. So it's real important to keep those things updated and check them out.
Yeah, I like that idea, and I like knowing where everything's at. And so that's why if you have a special first aid box at home, at business, wherever, in your car, then everything's there available. But it is true that you have to remember, oh yeah, I forgot I used, you know, all the Band-Aids up or whatever, the Neosporin, and I like Neosporin. It works good on everything.
That's funny.
Anyway. Oh, you're funny, Phil. So tell me what else about first aid is important.
There's a lot of elements of first aid. The most important aspect that I can share, probably on a TV show, is assess the situation. That's the first thing you need to do, is assess it for what it is. You know, if somebody's drowning, okay, and that's one aspect. And that is first aid. It's a form of first aid. If they're not unconscious, they're still conscious.
Especially here in Arizona, where we have tons of pools.
Absolutely.
And you can drown without a pool. I mean, you know.
No matter if it's choking, no matter if it's drowned, first aid and CPR, give an example, assess the situation. You need to know what it entails in a couple of different things. You know, what's going on with that person? Are they conscious? Are they unconscious? Is the scene safe? Is the scene not safe? You got to make sure you know what you're walking into, too. Another thing about first aid is common sense. I mean, if somebody gets bit, a lot of people always ask me, what do you do with snake bites in first aid? Well, the reality is I'm more worried about bites from human to human, kid to kid. We carry a lot more bacteria than any animal do. So, sure, and plus, this is CPR.
Even though they lick things and do stuff like
Absolutely,
that.
we carry a lot more bacteria. Well, that's why you use Neosporin.
That's funny. Or alcohol.
Especially with kids. We carry a lot more bacteria than any animal does, and at the same time, we talked about going on beyond the scope of what you're trained to do. So if this is normal CPR and first aid training that you're in, you know, that's not desert survival. If you want to learn how to take venom out of somebody's skin, you need to take another course.
But I bet you they have courses too on that. Probably
desert
on that,
survival courses.
Ashy Institute, I bet they have stuff
Different
too.
Instructors specialize in different things. They even have animal CPR classes.
Really?
Yeah, Big McGruff.
I never even thought about doing animal CPR.
Only problem is the guy has a bear suit. No, it's really tall. I'm just kidding. But yes, animal CPR, you know, animals are just important to us and a lot of people and very big parts of people's families. So there's all sorts of CPR classes to get into. First aid, though, is real common. You want to try to make the person comfortable and get them to medical attention. That's the primary aid for first aid. And you want to make sure that, you know, things are taken care of. If they're bitten, look for an infection. See if it's red. It's common sense. If it is, get them in to see somebody. You know, if they've broken a limb or fractured, first of all, here's a couple rules. Anything that pops out of somebody's body like a bone, don't pop it back in. That's one of the first rules.
Oh, really?
Keep them mobilized and call 911. I mean, it's really common sense. Fractures, breaks, sprains, mobilize them, call 911. Don't put any pressure on them.
Yeah, either that or a lot of people could even run. They have those emergency urgent cares all over the valley, everywhere.
You know, now they have not only urgent cares all over the valley,
because we want to save 911. Too many people call 911, and sometimes it's hard. We want to save it for something. Not that that isn't important if somebody gets hurt, but if you could put someone in a car and get them to help right away.
Well, there's two ways that you need to follow. Number one, is always call 911 if somebody is unconscious, the first thing.
Number one,
Number
if
two,
someone's unconscious.
if the reason you're calling 911 is always for a life-threatening, not always just for a life-threatening situation. If somebody choked on an object and the object came out, they could have damaged inside their throat as well, especially with infants and different stuff like that. Now with infants, this is my policy. If somebody's choking and they're conscious, I'm calling 911, period. Because that object could cause damage. They could have swallowed another part of that object and it didn't come out yet. That's always good. I'd rather call 911 and be safe than not call it and try to get them there myself. So.
Okay, so you really recommend for
Remember
any
when we talked
emergency
about calling
like
911 and using a landline? If you use a landline, which also are payphones, the average response time for Maricopa County EMTs is about 4 to 6 minutes. Well, so if you think you can beat that, that's pretty quick.
Well, so many people don't have landlines anymore. I know I don't. And, you know, we just have our cell phones, and there's very few pay phones out there anymore, it seems like.
Sure. And if you have a cell phone, I mean, that you can only do with what you can do with. If that's what you have, that is what you have. But you need to be very clear on the information that you give that 911 operator. Don't hesitate on the information that you give that operator.
Because that's all part of first aid.
3, do not hang up on the 911 operator after you've asked them your questions. Make sure you keep them on the phone so they can, 1, give you instructions to deal with the situation that you're dealing with, and 2, they can also relay that information to the EMTs maybe that are being dispatched to where you're at, and they get a better idea what they're dealing with when they come on the scene. So it saves time. Again, saving seconds.
Wow, even first aid, because you never know how important it is.
You could have a ruptured artery. You know, there's all different aspects in all different situations.
Wow.
And you know what's really neat about first aid and CPR is
Yes.
a lot of different families have different medical issues going on within the family. Somebody might have cancer, somebody might have diabetes, somebody might have amputees and stuff like that. So they want to know specific things of how to help those people that they care about. Take the class.
Especially if they're handicapped.
Absolutely.
Oh, that is so good. So I didn't realize you could do a first aid class too. You would think, why do you need that? But it's important to know how to do things like that. And is that like just a day too, like the CPR? You
know, you usually do them together because it's one is part of one or the other.
Wow.
So, you know, it's a very, very important part that doesn't take long.
Well, great. Well, let's go to the information. This has been good. Thank you, Mr. Phil McIlveen with New Exodus, Inc. 1-888-747-9764. His email, info@newexodus.org, website, newexodus.org, lots of great information, and ASHIInstitute.org has all those classes we've been talking about and that you can go take and get certified and be a pro. Thank you, sir.
Always a pleasure.
Okay, and they don't have to be an instructor, they could just be
they could be a TV show host and actually get certified.
I love it. You're adorable. Okay, thank you so much for staying tuned, and we thank Mr. Phil for being here with us. And we want you to go have a safe week. Go kiss and hug someone and encourage someone to take these courses for their public safety, and you may save a life one day. God bless you. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
This program has been sponsored by the Trinity Broadcasting Network and made possible by your telethon dollars. Your continual support can keep Joy in Our Town brought to your home every day. So write Joy in Our Town, P.O. Box A, Santa Ana, California, 92711.